Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Woodcrest Bonsai. In my video earlier today, I took numerous seedlings that were 1 year old out of this seed tray, which is just a mud tray with holes drilled in the bottom for drainage. And I put them all into individual pots. And now I'm going to try to take this whole group that's in somewhat of an irregular oval as a group intact, take it over to my workbench, and then root prune the entire group, trying to keep it intact, and then put it into another large bonsai pot to have yet another cypress grove. And as you can see, I think you can see I've already tried to jostle it. I can pick it up like that, or pick up this end like this, but I can't pick up both ends with the camera, so I'll be doing that off camera. And then I'll also show you the pot that I've selected. So we'll pause and we'll go over to the workbench and I'll show you that. Here's the pot that I'm going to use. It is 20 inches across. It's actually a Sarah Rayner pot, and I just love her glazes and her style. This is the biggest pot I have of hers. And I have one 8-inch bulb pen left over from this morning. So that was pretty good. I estimated pretty well about how many pots I needed. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pot and put it on the bench where the grove is going to remain for a while. I'm not going to try to put the grove into the pot on the workbench here, and then I have to move it about 20 feet. And I'm just afraid that that's going to be too heavy and too ungainly. So I'm literally going to put the pot on the bench. Then I'm going to bring the trees here to the workbench. Try to root prune them. Then if they do remain intact, or even if they end up in a few pieces, put them into the pot on the bench where it's permanently going to be. Well, I say permanently, but you know what I mean. And then add some fresh soil and do the repot on the bench. So then once I'm done, I don't have to haul a thing around, because that's one of my problems with large trees is I can't move them around. So the next step is to take this guy over to the bench, grab the trees and bring them over here and see if we can't root prune them down to the point where they'll fit into this pot. This pot's only about 2 inches. So that's the next step. Ugh. So I've got the group, and as you can see, they're all about 3 feet high. This is only 1 year of growth as seedlings. Of course, they had all the room they needed to. They were competing with each other, but they really weren't restricted like if they had been grown in a pot. But you can see I've got my work cut out for me, because they all have pretty heavy-duty roots that go down much further. I need to cut the soil to about here. I need to cut about half off. So that could make things interesting. But we're going to give it a go. The worst thing that happens, it could all fall apart, and I just pot them up individually. At least they're still dormant. Although actually, you see that little guy right there? That growth right there? That's some tiny little growth. So they are starting to pop out of dormancy. And what I'm finding is this, it's interesting because it's the smallest trees that are breaking dormancy first, which I find very interesting. So I'm going to put a camera on the tripod and then do my best to get this thing shallow enough to go into the pot that I want, that I just showed you. I've decided, before I prune the roots, to trim everything down, because I really need to bring the whole thing on its side. And if I do that, then all of the tops will be bashed up against my background. So I'm just going to give everything a pruning in the grove form that I want. So lower, higher, 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 higher in here, and then back lower, lower, lower. So I'm going to do that right now just to make it a whole lot easier to turn the root ball over. And, you know, I actually need to be cutting these guys this way so that the growth, oops, comes out. So then a little higher. Oops. A little higher, a little higher, a little higher, and then back down. Ah! And this is a very interesting random selection of some trees that are pretty large and then others that are quite thin. But I love the naturalness of that. So let's get rid of all the stuff I just cut off so you can actually see the perspective. So there you go, the dome look. And I don't really have a first main tree, probably this guy right here. It's going to be the first main tree, although I cut it a little low. But I can always, you know, when it begins to grow, I can always just let it become the first main tree. So now I'm going to lay it on its side. And I'm not really worried about the root pruning per se, other than can I keep the root ball intact and then take it over there where I put the pot all in one fell swoop. And I do believe that there are a few too many trees on the ends to actually fit into the pot. So I may be like removing these three. And if I do, they'll just go into their own individual container. So here we go. Bring it up like that. Oh my, oh, and there's an ant mound in there. Oh, and they're not happy. And look at how the roots have gone in the middle. Alright, so here goes nothing. So far I haven't hit any big roots. There we go. And these are a little bit coarser shears than the ones I normally use to trim my branches. Oh, this is going to be an ordeal here. No, not necessarily an ordeal, but it's going to take a while. It's definitely going to take a while. I suppose I could just bring a sawzall and just whack, but I don't want to do that. Do not want to do that. So believe me, people, this is an experiment. I've never done it like this before. Many, many years ago, I had a bald cypress grove that when my daughter was a little girl, it was one of her favorite of my bonsai. And it was actually in the mica pot where I now have the other grove that I just worked on. But of course, that's long ago. It's coming. Your guess is as good as mine if it's going to work. Oh, and there's a group of trees that just fell off that are not going to remain intact. And I was assuming that was a possibility. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'm working blind. I can't even see what I'm doing in there. I'm just putting roots, just putting the cutters in there and seeing what I can do. So I'm working by feel. Not sure there's any easier way to do it though. And of course, conventionally, what normal people do is they grow the trees individually to a certain point. Then they select tree number 1, tree number 2, tree number 3, and so on and so forth. But I just thought I'd try this way. I'm glad it's still cool enough where it really hasn't, none of my temperate trees have broken dormancy. So kind of like surgery. Let's pull back the skin. And as you can see, this soil is a very sandy, almost garden soil. The trees certainly grew very well. They didn't care that they were in this soil. Getting there. It's always a triumph when you can feel a big root and chop through it. You feel the root balls start to give away. Oh, I think we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close, and I think we have done it. Look at that root. Yeah. Okay, now the next thing is to bring it upright and how much of it is going to remain intact. I already know we lost some. See, we lost a bunch right here. Oh man, yeah, they took a beating. Most of the rest of them look okay. So can I now go over to the other pot? Let's go for it. And I'm not going to be able to really record that. So I'm going to pause and then we'll see what we've got once I get over to the other pot. So here we are with the trees on the bench. They got into the pot pretty well. You can see there's a whole section here that is missing because that group fell over and severed from the main group. We have a bunch of trees that really need to be straight. And you know, I've just decided to just use the same sandy mix that they were already in. I don't think it really, they certainly haven't been adversely affected by this very sandy mix. And the ones that are leaning, as I put the mix in, I'll just straighten them up and push the soil down to keep them straight. And then of course we need to fill in here. And I've got some, and I put them in water. So let's see what we got. Just do a guy like that. Get the sand. And another fairly large one. Like that. It'll be interesting to see how well I can make this little section that I'm going to build look like the naturalness of the other part. Or are you going to be able to see where nature ended and a human began? I think I'm going to take this one out in the back. It's too big and it's way too close to the edge. So here's one with a very interesting root. So we'll put him about right there. There's not much in the back either. So I think I'm going to spin it around a little bit. Work on some of the trees in the back. I'm going to put thinner trees in the back to do a little forced perspective. And I'm going to attempt to feather the roots the way I did when I planted the other ones individually, but I don't really think that's entirely necessary. Get a couple other smaller ones. This guy's thin, but he's tall, so he was probably closer to the middle. But I think that's working okay. Here's another thin one with some funky stair-step roots. So we'll put them in there. Set some soil down. I'm not sure if I have any really little tiny ones. I don't think I do. So I've probably got some other little tiny ones in the other trays. I still have, this is one tray down, I still have 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 more trays to go of cypress seedlings, a year old, that are all about 3 feet high, and they all have about 100 trees each. Why I need that many ball cypress is anybody's guess. But you know, I collected the seed, and you don't know how many seeds you're collecting, you just collect the seed. And then the next thing I know, they started to germinate, and I was lucky to be able to find trees that I could collect really fresh seed from. And I had someone who commented that they've had pretty bad luck with bald cypress germination, but they've been getting dry seed, and fresh seed is by far better. And then I took them and I put them in a paper bag. These guys are pretty big. Are you actually being able to see what I'm doing? Because we have no backdrop. Actually, the backdrop, these trees here are all the ilex shillings that I've just repotted. This section of the bench gets beautiful morning sun, but then it gets afternoon shade. So keep things from drying out too much. I need some little ones. Did I leave any on the bench? I don't think I did. It's like, what happened? Where'd they go? So this is another, obviously was close to the center because it's taller as far as being cut. So in theory it was a good idea to try to bring the whole thing intact. And it wasn't that bad. That guy there is falling over badly. And some trees falling over is, kind of natural. Many times with bonsai, you don't see trees falling over in a grove. Sometimes you see trees that are moving out from the edge. And I think I'm going to go around. And I only have 3 more trees, and they're all quite large as far as diameter. So let's stick one right here, get those roots covered. And like I said, I put them in some water. I grow water lilies, and the water lilies are right behind the camera. So I was able to take the trees that fell off when I was trying to do the root pruning and put them into that water so they didn't dry up. Definitely need to get these guys straighter. Come on, stay straight. And this grove has now got a natural mound. It'll be interesting to see how they perform in the sandy soil, but once again, in the seed tray, it had the exact same soil, so they did just fine. Probably I'll be needing to work these trees to keep them upright over a few days or even weeks. So when one starts to lean, I'll just have to do what I'm doing with my fingers, straighten it up. So how's it looking? I think it's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to go get my backdrop. Oh look, there's one. We'll put him right there. Get the roots down in there. And at this early stage, I can always put more really little ones, either in the front or in the back, because I've certainly got them. They're just another seed trays that I haven't really even begun to work with. But I'm kind of liking that. Let me go get the backdrop, and we'll see what it looks like without the busyness of the other trees. I decided to use the white side. There is a black side and a white side. I guess we can do that, and you can say, oh yeah, that's not bad, or we can spin it around. Do the black side. About the same. So there you go. I think it was pretty successful. And I like how deep they are in the pot. They're not like way up here, which they would have been had I not done all that massive root pruning. Sorry. Stop. And now with the root pruning that they got, they're going to really need to stay wet a lot. Of course, this super sandy soil stays very wet. But I kind of like the look. I like the way it came out a lot. So if you like the way it came out, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to watch this guy, if you're curious to see what happens in this incredibly sandy soil, and after we've done the dome, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I will be giving you updates on this guy probably fairly regularly, because bald cypress grow fast. Like I said, in 1 year they got 3 feet. So once they begin to sprout, and I want to keep the dome, the trees will end up in here. There's going to be a lot of work on this guy, and I'm probably going to take a couple little tiny babies in front and in the back from the other seed trays, like this little guy here, little tiny ones, and I certainly got them. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. What do you think? I love the Serrana pot, and I think it really came out very nice. I like the I don't know what you'd call it, but I like whatever it is that you call it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.